most people pronounce my name as Martin.
Okay, we will do it.
We
will do the Martin.
Thank you.
Hey, just so y'all know, you might send her some well wishes. Manpreet's not feeling well at all today. So maybe just send her some well wishes in a private Slack or on the family chat. Hey, Val, before everyone gets here, where did you get to so far? I'm sorry I couldn't get back to you last night. I was running kids around and then Sue felt bad and I had to do dinner and stuff.
All I thought last night when I saw your note was, Friday night, 9 kids, they want to see dad, typical family stuff. So no worries. But I have to, excuse me, I have to thank Danny Ma, because, week after week, Danny Ma posts all of these free Udemy classes. So I went through my all of that, and I found 2 classes on GitHub. So I started going through those and trying to figure it out. And then this morning, watching what you were doing, it's helping me sort of piece. I think I have everything. I actually think I got it, but I just couldn't confirm it because I wasn't sure. And so seeing this morning's class, I think I got the stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to, I had forgotten about the keys, where they were located. So now I've got to go look at that. So it's just, trying to piece the puzzle together, but at least I found the class notes, like I found Geit's pictures and stuff like that. So I think I'm in the right direction. But I don't think, considering when you started walking us through in the beginning, I don't think I checked all those boxes. I just took the default. So I don't know. I don't want to reinstall it. But I mean,
understand.
Is that going to be like earth shattering, or is there some other play?
No. In fact, what I kind of want to do is get it to where we've boiled it down to where it covers 95% of us on. By the way, if you've ventured into Linux and you've set up, I'm not trying to dissuade y'all from going to Linux, but Alec, I'm so proud of you. I don't know how long you've been doing Linux, but I'm a Linux guy as often as I can be. But then my corporate world, that we work in Windows, and Alec knows what I'm talking about. Linux is a dream, but Linux is like living on another planet and realizing, yeah, Earthlings are weird. Why don't we do things like this? But then you still have to get used to the Linux culture and the Linux thinking. And so it's yet a whole nother dimension is what I'm trying to say. But basically, those keys, when you read instructions about them, they're trying to be extra thorough. And sometimes that just causes challenges because it's as simple as create the key, find the public key, go copy it. And then Val, like you said, well, where is the public key? Where do I find it? And do I really have to learn Vim to go no, please don't. And a lot of guides encourage you to use Vim. And I'm like, why are you doing that to people? Just use Notepad.
The VI editor. Sorry, that's so awful. I was so happy when I didn't have to use that anymore.
Nobody has to use VI to get work done or Vim. But once you've copied it, it's just putting it in the right place in GitHub. It's really that simple. It's just creating that tunnel. So I think I will go ahead and make a simplified key generation and copying instruction set for our group. Gio, can I kind of let you referee today, because with what you shared in our steward chat, I think it'd be, if you don't mind, Gio, it's okay if you want me to do it, but maybe introduce what we're going to do. And then that way you get to control the time scale, because we know you can't stay the whole time. Would you be okay with that, Gio? And I'll open the chat in case you want to tell me that way.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Gio.
Hi. Okay, today we are going to talk about how we communicate how we present our results, our projects to our stakeholders. Maybe some of us, we don't have the experience of being working as a data scientist or with data, but maybe we have participated. For example, I have the experience of how I present with my team our project in a hackathon, for example. So everyone has a different experience. Some of our members of our family, maybe they are already working and presenting the results of a project, or in general to a group of stakeholders. So today we would like to guide the session about sharing our experience, how we communicate the results to our stakeholders, and how is that experience. Because sometimes we heard a lot that people said, okay, I present my results, but then the stakeholders just start doing a lot of questions, and I had to explain everything. And it's like, what happened? I thought my dashboard was so clear to present my results. So we would like to share today that in order to, the idea of this session is sharing, as always, sharing our experience, and then sharing some tips how to do it better, to learn more together.
Gio, did you want to go first on what you wanted to share with the group, or did you want one of the other people that have planned this icebreaker to go first? You wanted to present some summary things at a certain point,
Yeah.
but that's later, correct?
Okay, I going to present something, but in the next session, as a result of our session for today.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, I guess I'm going to kind of let Gio run things today, but if you want, Gio, I can go next with my little 1 to 2 minute thing.
Of course. Please.
Okay, great. So I stumbled upon this quite stupidly, and I decided, wow, that was so powerful. I'm going to use that from now on. Now, you can't always do it, but you can try to always do it. There's key stakeholders in the room for anything you present.
Yep.
Make no mistake, when you're presenting, you're selling something.
Yes.
And it may be an easy sell, it may be a hard sell, but I say treat them all like a hard sell. And try to meet with the key stakeholders at the beginning of your development of your presentation, and bring them something crappy, like even just some handwritten outline. This is kind of where I want to take this. Do you think this will meet the needs? And they'll confirm or deny, and they'll give you feedback. And you should do that right at the beginning, early on, in my opinion. If you keep going back to them at certain intervals for feedback, when you get in the room and you're presenting, they will defend your presentation, even to those persnickety people that always ask those challenging questions without fail. By the way, I've been in some pretty hard environments and had to pull out my best sales skills. And I realized this was the most powerful method. I was dealing with a very difficult analysis, and a lot of it was handwork, or excuse me, manual tuning. And but I kept going to the architect of our group and saying, "Hey, Doug, I think I need to do this. What do you think?" And he'd confirm or deny and give me some additional ideas. I'd go work in those. By the time we went to the presentation, he knew the presentation. And the most difficult person in the room, every time he asked a challenging question, the architect would defend what I had done because he already understood it. Now, this was super complicated stuff, but I think if you have some stakeholders that have invested in you while you develop this, it just, and you learn a ton from their feedback along the way. But that's my 2 bits. I could share a lot more, but I just wanted to keep it to that short bit. Gio, who should go next?
I will go next.
Excellent.
I think Manpreet is she is not joining, and also maybe Zaina, she is not joining. So in fact, I like what you said, Tom, because this kind of involvement for the key stakeholders in your presentation is great. Sometimes the situation will be different. So always, let's say the key of this, it's you have to understand the environment. That it's very important to understand the environment you are going to present. So this is something, it's not an option, it's mandatory. Otherwise you are doing something out of the scope or out of the context. But let's say one of the most important, let's say, tips for in presentation skills is the flexibility that you have as a presenter, and understand the flexibility of the audience. So how much they are flexible to get your suggestions, your ideas. Sometimes we are not presenting results. Sometimes we are presenting methodologies. We are presenting processes. So depending on that, you have to really understand your audience and also be flexible for any kind of, let's say, question not expected, and how to be. This is here the keynotes from my side. How to answer unexpected question by being ready with a lot of expected questions. Most of the questions that you are ready for it, you will never be asked about it. But all of them, it's creating in your and your team, let's say, back mind, kind of better understanding about where you are covering and what you are covering. So even if you receive unexpected question, you are ready because you have bigger picture with all of these questions that you are trying. So consulting all the, let's say, all the team and some other people, understanding the environment and being flexible to face the unexpected environment and unexpected technical issues. So always be ready with plan B in presentation. So this will help because unexpected technical issues is also something happened a lot. So this is what I want to say right now. Maybe during our discussion, for sure, I will add some other points. But this is what I'm always afraid about. So I want to tell them that everyone, this is important to be ready with.
Excellent. Guy, do you tend to do that with, oh yeah, just a minute, Martine. Do you tend to do that with backup slides sometimes to support the,
Okay, backup slides, sometimes it would be useful. Sometimes it's, yes, there is a lot in, when I present, there is a lot of slides, I'm not presenting. Even, by the way, even during our class, you know that.
yeah,
because I'm checking that, okay, it's about the time. This is, I'll keep it for later. Sometimes it's also useful to have, maybe it's not backup slides. Sometimes especially when I was in Syria, this is important to tell, I was ready to go for paper and whiteboard presentation. Until that, always. So any idea I want to present, I prefer to be able to explain it on whiteboard. So I'm able to just forget about any tool and go ahead, just explain it as it is. So has to be simple like this, always. This is what I'm trying to do.
excellent. Martine, did you have a question?
No, not a question. Only a reaction. I give many presentations about the stuff that I'm doing, and mostly the presentations are for not so many people, let's say groups from 4 to 10 people. And my presentations are mostly giving a feedback of what I did in the research or in things that I investigated, And what is very important, that the people who are listening to me, that they recognize the things that I give in my feedback to them. So it's when I present surprises that are about surprises, I mean, when I present things that nobody recognizes, then that is really a very dangerous thing, and that is not appreciated. So when I give my feedback, then it is important that I say to people, thank you, and give them the honor that they deserve, and be critical. So when I found critical things, then I give my feedback in a critical way, but in such a way that the people recognize this from the talkings with that I have with them. And that's important. So it's important to be honest. That's actually what I mean. To be honest and to give and also to give the honor to the public to which I give my presentation. So no surprises, no surprises. That's a bit about what my experience, and that's an experience of many years.
Martine, I'm really glad you added that, because and I hope everyone will take this well. When in my corporate life, I've enjoyed taking courses on different cultures, and I consider you part of Scandinavia. Is that accurate? You are part of Scandinavia.
No, Netherlands is Netherlands. What is it? We are a neighbor of Germany.
Okay. But yeah, I put some notes about what you were saying because I thought it was so powerful. I'll just see if I can reiterate it. Sometimes what you present causes surprises and it gives feedback, and so it can cause a little disturbance, is what I understood you to say. And so it's important to show gratitude to help diffuse some of that, but also to just be humble and take feedback. But the main thing is to be honest with your presentation and, really still say what an honor it was to present. And,
yeah.
Is that okay? Great. Oh,
Yeah.
Tina, we're glad you're here too. Greg, by the way, we just had some, and I'm glad Martine jumped in, but we did have just some 1-2 minute things prepared by some people, and then we really want to open it up to everyone, but it's fine to jump in between our little things too, like Martine did. Greg, will you go next?
Sure. Hi guys. I wanted to channel what Rife and Tom started. It's really important during the journey as you're preparing or working on your project that you have key stakeholders who are in the know. Even when you discover new surprises, that these stakeholders help you do a pulse check, whether that surprise makes sense or it needs to be challenged and things like that, because these guys are the ones who will fight for you when it comes to those who are so good at coming up with those, great questions or challenging questions. So what you're doing in that journey is coming up with a group of people who will be your partners during the presentation. So that helps you with answering a lot of these questions from stakeholders. So I have a quick format for all of my presentation, and I'm gonna share it with you. Whenever you're presenting to an audience, tell them what you're going to tell them. Then tell them what you told them. That's pretty much it. Make sure you have that introduction. Talk about the issue you're about to talk about. talk about, then announce what issue you're about to talk about. Then you tell them about that issue. You explain your reasoning behind the issue, your discovery, et cetera, and then have a conclusion about what you discovered. So when you keep it that simple, it hits home. People are not distracted, and they ask pertinent questions about the issue that you addressed, your discovery, et cetera, et cetera. That's how I keep it simple. So that's how I can share it with you.
This is fantastic, Greg. In fact, I maybe add, if anybody asks you any unexpected question, tell him that you already told them. Okay. In fact, just I want to add this story, Tom, before maybe somebody else will speak. There is one point also. It's to manage our expectation as a team, because as presenters, because sometimes our expectation about the audience, about our results, or about our work will be, let's say, will give us false imagination about what will happen. So in fact, we have to keep our expectation about the result of this presentation or the feedback of this presentation outside of the scope in the beginning. Don't imagine it will be big fail, and don't imagine that it will be big success. No need to think about it in the beginning, during preparing to the presentation and during the presentation. This is especially for, let's say, the newbie who just started in their career. This is main bad reason for a lot of problems during presentations. It's the high or the very low expectations about the feedback.
Excellent, excellent. And Greg, I'm so glad you added that, because if you go to any major speaking thing and they're covering basic presentation skills, if we hadn't said what you just said, we would have been saying, oh, here's how you build a house. And then we never talked about a foundation. So it's so important you brought that up today. Let's see. So Manpreet has a horrible headache today, and I'm missing her dreadfully. But thank God we have Tina with us. And Tina, I know you get nervous, but you're a master presenter. So you want to share any pearls of wisdom that help you when you're presenting with everyone real quick before we open it up?
Yes, like it's been great to be back with everyone. And when I'm presenting, I get very nervous at times, and like sometimes it can happen that I do miss out on the points. Like what I say is not what I had in mind. So like so how you take care, like how you handle those or improvise in those situations is basically like you take a deep breath, and you think about, like, instead of suddenly saying what you have, like what comes to your mouth, like think about anything that you want to say, like prepare a lot, and you should give a proper answer rather than saying anything that comes to our mind first. We should think about the question and think about a proper answer that we can give for that question, and then respond to that. So I think that would make a much better answers or any question when we are responding to questions, basically. And while presenting also, it's really important. Practice makes you more confident. Like when I was doing my first presentation with Tom and Lewis, I was so damn nervous, and the first rehearsal was an utter mess for me. And like I practiced a lot. I practiced 2 or 3 times looking at the mirror, like opening a Google Meet and like presenting to myself. And that actually helped me to improve a lot in the main presentation that I did. So I think practice is the main thing that can help you when you're doing presentations.
Tina, I wanted to, oh yeah, 1 minute, Greg, because I wanted to leverage off what she was saying. And thanks for using the hand raise thing. I wish, I would encourage everyone, when you have a question, use the hand raise feature from here. So Tina, I wanted to see if I heard you well, because I think you're making a point that I learned as a young man. So I'd stand in front of my nation's Naval Nuclear Commission. and they would be grilling me on, Tom, how do you handle this emergency in a naval nuclear power plant? And these guys were like top notch mental on this. And I'd get so nervous, guys, and I'd start talking fast. And I think one thing Tina's trying to say is, don't think you have to talk so fast. Just because you get a question doesn't mean you have to rattle off an answer right away. It actually looks quite intelligent for you to sit there and go, okay. And then you pause for like 2 seconds. It's not uncomfortable for the audience. And then you might even say, let me repeat your question because I think it's really important and I want to make sure I get it right. But your mind's fascinating. By restating their question, you're actually even preparing yourself better. Tina, you correct me or jump in anytime. But I thought what you were sharing was so powerful. I just wanted to hit on it a little harder. And so when I finally learned to do that in front of these very intimidating board examiners, it occurred to me, this is not an actual emergency that I'm running them through. I'm controlling the time scale. Sometimes when we're nervous, we start talking faster, thinking that'll fix things. Slow down, take a breath, relax, repeat things. Tina, go ahead. Please fill in what I'm seeing.
Like you just paraphrased what I just said in an excellent way, Tom. That is exactly the essence of what I wanted to tell.
Excellent. Thank you, Tina. That was super important. Greg, please.
And I wanted to build on Tina's explanation here, and she is really spot on and spoken like an Amazonian, even because at my work, it's no surprise to the world that Amazon doesn't use PowerPoints. We use Word documents for our presentations. And the fun thing is there's always a section that's called FAQ. If you're the presenter, you have the FAQ section where you're anticipating additional questions that the audience will have, and you answer them in the FAQ section. So as part of the document review, the audience will have a chance to read these questions. If they have anything that they feel is unanswered, they most likely will find it in that section. And the exercise of coming up with that FAQ is exactly what Tina was saying. It allows you to anticipate additional details to make sure that the audience understands and hones in on what you're trying to drive in the main section of your presentation. So really important, very good thing to have for a presenter. And that usually works though, not at presentation. You wanna have some sort of reading section to give people enough time to get familiar with the material. Because if you're presenting in an hour, most likely most people will not go through the whole FAQ section on its own. So that's what I need to share. Spot on, Tina.
Yeah, and Tina, I put some notes just because we save these chats, and some people like to write posts on our sessions, which is super awesome, by the way, you guys that do that. But by the way, if I'm going to have a major weakness in an interview or a presentation, and really an interview, you're presenting yourself the whole time. My biggest weakness is staying relaxed. And I was so glad when we were talking through the interview times, Gio pointed out how important it is to stay relaxed. And I think Tina's talking about ways she works hard to stay relaxed, because Tina, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the questions that would get her nervous. She's like, oh, someone might ask something I don't know. By the way, I learned to say, you take that pause, you relax, you remember you're in control of the time. And then you might have to say, I don't know how to answer your question right away, but I will show you the process I would go through to begin to answer it. Just another thought. There's some questions over here in the chat. Let's go through these. can you talk more about the presentation style, Greg? You said PowerPoint slides. So it's Word. Greg, I'll start and then please fill in. Oh, you're putting, yes, let's go to Jonathan's question first, and then we'll come back to these questions in the chat. Thank you, Greg. Jonathan, yeah,
thank you. You actually briefly just touched on it as well, because we've got a lot of everything now has been going on about be prepared for these questions and have your answers ready. But there's going to be those times where you have those questions that you cannot answer directly, and you have to maybe go back and do some research on that to give them the answer. But you touched upon it, just there saying that you'd have to explain how you would find that answer for them. But it's good practice to don't give any answer, keep it truthful, because later on when you come back and say, oh well, I've got the answer, they're going to say, well, it was different from what you explained in the presentation. So you have to keep it truthful, and if you really don't know, just say, I will look into it and come back to you with the correct answer to the question. But keep it truthful and don't just start talking about anything that may possibly get you there.
Jonathan's statement really helped me here. Sometimes we think we have to be the source of all knowledge when we're presenting. And I think it can look quite powerful to say, I have some ideas, but I'm not really that sure. I'd kind of like to open this one up. Now you turn into facilitator. I've had a lot of meetings go that way, where it's a group of engineers or other stakeholders in the business. And I say, before I give my answer, I'd like to open it up. And, but I think it's even equally powerful to say, I haven't really thought through that much yet. Can we open it up right now and get some initial ideas? Just some thoughts. Can y'all help me? I'd like to go through these questions real quick in the chat. So Greg, I think just to reiterate, at Amazon, you guys show up to a meeting room and there's copies of a Word document and everybody reads the presentation while they're sitting there quietly. I remember you talking about this. And then there's a frequently asked questions section too. You want to elaborate more, Greg? That's cool. That's very different. Oh, you're muted, Greg.
Sorry. Yeah, especially nowadays, there are, we do our work in online. Now it's soft copy. And just to tell you about the structure, you have the main document. It could be a 1-pager, a 2-pager, or a 6-pager. Typically, when you're talking about the performance of a department, you want to have that document set like this. And then you have the FAQ section, and then you have the appendix. Appendix is where you put your graphs, tables, et cetera, But if you have an appendix, you have to be sure that this appendix is referenced in the main document. So people will have plenty of time. And the way Amazon does it is we take 30 minutes at the beginning of the presentation where it's dead silence. So when the first time I experienced that, I felt weird. I had to message people on the side saying, hey, why isn't anybody talking? What's going on right now? It was actually the time it took for everybody to read and get familiar with the content of the document and go through the appendix to look at the graphs. And if there's a main metrics page, typically that main metrics page is put at the beginning of the document, like what you would call page 0. Then page 1 is where the document starts. And then you have FAQ section, and then you have appendix. So total, you're talking about 14 to, 19 pages where everybody gets, so fast at reading and marking, and then at the end, go page by page to answer questions from stakeholders. But in this journey, you want to choose key stakeholders that you want to present that document to, so they can kind of grill it, ask pertinent questions in order for you to make edits to the document, and also be able to add these questions also in the FAQ section. So when you present it to the main stakeholders, these questions will be easier for you to answer. There will always be questions, but again, I hear a lot of you say, don't panic. If you don't know a question, an answer to a question, you can always tell that stakeholder that you will deep dive and come back with that response in due time.
Now, Greg, I'm going to stay with me here. Let's pretend we're still talking on your point. I scrolled up to make sure I hadn't missed anything. And Tina, I'm going back up to your question. I don't know if you were here when I opened. I like to go get the stakeholders, even the highest stakeholders possible, involved in the conversation while I'm beginning to plan the presentation and get feedback during the development of it. That is one powerful technique. And Greg, help me here. Amazon's culture of doing this style of presentation is extremely mature. Don't count on that level of maturity being at other companies. Culture is king. If you send out a document and say, or if you bring a set of documents to some corporate environment, say, here, we're just going to read this and mark it up, and toward the end of the meeting, we'll have some conversation. They might look at you and go, are you on acid? We don't do things that way here. So just understand this is unique to Amazon. Greg, correct me if that's not fair.
Yeah, I'm thinking a lot of other companies are doing that approach too nowadays, maybe especially in the tech side. But now, it doesn't mean there isn't any PowerPoint presentations. Let me see if I can explain that. PowerPoint presentations is kind of like announcement types presentations. Hey, look what we're releasing here. You know, kind of like when you have a big audience, and but typically it's not inside of a department. So if I'm sharing, you know, we're talking about performances or anything like that, we don't do PowerPoints. If it's some sort of training you're providing, yes, PowerPoint is good for that as well. So trainings. But when it comes to, you know, reviewing performances or presenting, you know, the results of a project, it's all hard conversation, paragraph, detailing what you found, what was your reasoning, and what do you see in the future? What is your next steps? What are your next steps, et cetera, et cetera. So
excellent.
Pretty grueling exercise, but it has a lot of benefits.
And I just want to iterate, personally, I find this a very mature approach, but all I'm trying to emphasize, and I think everyone, please shout out if you disagree. Well, I don't think you will, but you got to look at your culture and just do the best with the way your culture, your company culture operates. Now I see the hand raises, but I want to try to get through some of these comments. Naaman, I think we've all been there where, yes, after the presentation, we're like, oh yes, darn, you know, I could have presented that better. I think we want, Naaman, make sure we come back around to that. But just one key thing is super valuable to present to your team before you do the main presentation. John Thompson's an expert at this by getting his team to help their teammates before they present so that they can filter out all those bad presentation techniques that we geeks tend to do. And so, Naaman, it's just one idea. I hope we come back around to more ideas, but yeah, just present to your teammates before you give the main presentation so they can help you refine it. Oh, good. I see your head there, and that will help. And then Timothy, can you talk? Okay, we just did that, Tim. And then thank you, Gio, for confirming. That's right. But see, what Gio is saying to Naaman, that happens by giving that serious practice presentation. And if I wish y'all could have seen the show where John Thompson talks about how he does this with the people on his team as a manager. Yes, thank you, Poonam. This happens with me. Like I practice before giving the presentation, but while presenting, I get nervous. That is something learned. Just try to stay relaxed. It's a discipline that's got to be learned, and I'm really bad at that too. So okay, so very true, Tom. Following point to remember during. Also stick to the point. Stick to the point. When you are nervous, there are chances that you are starting blabbering. Really, if you get nervous, stop talking, take a deep breath, and get back on topic. That will save you so many times. I never knew this about Amazon. Good. Welcome back. Super. Help me with the question. I think we've covered everything. Yes, it doesn't go deep enough, right? That's why it's that's why I was calling it mature too, by the way. Okay, I'm going to go back. I think we've covered those. Help me out if we've not, but Guy, thanks for waiting. Let's go.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Tom, I have one thing. It wasn't my question, in fact, but once you are reading and I was reading also the chat, it's about how to keep relaxed. There is now during the questions, it's need a lot of, by practicing you will know how, but during the presentation process itself, when you are presenting, you and your team, as a person, when you are presenting, just think about one super idea that Tom always telling us. I also tell everyone who asks me, okay, I'm nervous how to do that. I'm trying to do it always. Think that you are presenting to the most person that you are like. You love him. This is your only audience. This is as idea. In fact, the second technique is to have, since Tom say that you are able, you need some time to involve the key stakeholders in your process from the beginning. So you can choose this one. You have agents, let's say, inside the audience that you are also presenting to them if the environment that not much relaxing. Also always keep that person in the audience. Now online maybe it will be harder, but I'm talking about let's say the live presentations. My question, it's about something when Greg said that I can imagine that everyone, they have the same concern, they want to reach the same target, and then they want to be on the same page by having all of these readings. According to that, the presentation or the meeting, it will be fast, it will be clear for everyone. This is, in fact, it's a very great process, but it's typical. It's more than expected. It's ideal. Okay. Now, I want to ask about something else, and everyone is able to answer. Consider the external customers, someone you are really interested about him, and you want to present to him something, you want to convince him, you want to capture his attention. How to do that? This is, I think, the hardest process, because totally different background for sure, totally different audience, and maybe also somebody, as we are technical people, somebody from non-technical background, he already missed everything before you join. So this scenario, I think it's very important when we are able to master this scenario. Any other presentation, it will be, let's say, it will be included in it. This is my question.
Let's open it up. That's great. This is, I just really like this question. So can people jump in?
I just wanted to ask, Reif, are you talking about at a point where you already have a contract with that customer and now you're convincing the customer that you have a solution for it? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, what are you trying to achieve with that customer? Are you trying to get them to sign a contract with you, or are you trying to convince them that your solution is what's good for them, or are you trying to convince them that they came to you with a problem and you found you are able to research the problem and you're presenting what you found to the customer. I just want to understand what the
I think here it's better to think that you have a kind of solution, either it's process or product or service, and you want to convince him that it's the better for his situation. Now, it's good also to assume that you have background about his real requirement, his real problem. So I don't want to make it very wide. You have a clear requirement. He is expected potential customer, and you are going to convince him. This scenario, I think, because you will get, I think the most aggressive people, it will be there. This kind of people.
Yeah. If you have data about the customer already, to me, I think it takes two things: a clear PowerPoint that highlights the findings, and then a report that details what led you to that PowerPoint about the findings. So you need that report to be in any format, especially like it could be a Word document that explains, how you use the customer's data, how you tested it, and then how you came about, getting those results. And then that PowerPoint can be a quick summary of the findings and what the issue was. And also in your report, you need to show industry standards in terms of your competitor, for example, how do they solve this problem? So you have to have two, right? You have to have the high level pitch about what you found and how effective it is, and then the detailed report about the work you've done, leveraging that customer's data to solve that issue. So it could be a little bit of technical explanation behind it, if that customer is in fact able to understand the technical details that you applied to get to that answer. But I think these two documents are key to getting there. And at the end of the day, it's about knowing who you're talking to. Are you, is that customer a technical person? Is that customer a non-technical person? And that will help you gauge what document you need to provide that person.
Excellent. I'm going to...
Tom,
Guy, are we summarize what we just, because this was important, but I'm looking for a simpler takeaway for my simple brain.
Yes, in fact, when we are talking about, if you want me to summarize about this question, it's like this. We have outside customer, somebody from different background. He is not technical, and most of us here in this room, we are technical. Let's consider we are technical. That means at least the customer is not the same background of the presenter. But we understand his requirement, and we are trying to convince him with the service or product or even a team to hire, for example. Okay, what is the best way to approach him to convince him? Because his question, it will be maybe not logical for us, but from his point of view, it's totally logical. Whatever we are able to present, we are not sure that we are speaking his language. So that's why was my question. And here's why, Greg, it's when we understand our audience, what is the background, what is the needs, we have to cover it as fast as possible, as simple as possible. This is how I get it from using the PowerPoint and also some documents for them to back to it after finishing the presentation. This is what I got from Greg. In fact, I don't want to personally, but I think the question, it's need a lot of explanation to go deep on that, because Ngozi is waiting, Jonathan is waiting. They have questions.
But I do want to cover that. I've studied a lot of sales material over the years, and you two just really summarized most of it. You find the key stakeholder, and you work really hard to find out what they care about, and you go after those things carefully. That's it in a nutshell. It's that I think sometimes your stakeholder is not an architect on your team, it's an external customer, but same thing. Who's the key individual you need to speak with? Can you start speaking with them before you give the final presentation?
Yeah.
Hey, I want to point out a logistic item real quick. we realized that we shouldn't have a hard cutoff for the end of the mentoring session before we go into the after party. So we're just going to look for kind of a good stopping point. So it won't be like right at the hour. I should have mentioned that at the front. So sorry. Jonathan, you've been waiting forever, and then we're going to go to Ngazi. Thank you for being patient. Going ahead.
Yeah, so some really great points there. And when we're saying we're looking at the customer and that key stakeholder, and it's something, a tip also recently reading from Scott Taylor's book. He talks about the 3 V's, and that's the vocabulary, voice, and vision. So make sure you're not using vocabulary that they don't understand. You're talking in a common language, and that your vision is the same as theirs when you're trying to present or win them as a customer, or if you have them as a customer, to go to that next stage. And and also is the you're talking about the industry standards. Why that's very good to be within the industry standard. Maybe you can be that outside of that industry standard and be that 3% of a company trying to win the business, be that extraordinary company that's within the 3% and not the 97% of the industry standard. If you see what I'm trying to put a point across there, say, look, we're the 3%, we're different from the normal 97%.
Yes. And Jonathan, what I hear you stressing is when you identify that key person. By the way, it might be good later on if we discuss the different type of presentations, like the kind that Tina and Lewis and I gave was an educational presentation. The type that Greg gives in Amazon, a lot of times they're reporting on status and suggested actions, but sometimes we're trying to sell a point. And Jonathan, to that type of presentation, I hear you saying, make sure you know what your unique selling point is. Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, as well. Yeah.
Excellent. And that along with the other key points, and again, we'll try to capture these and get them into a blog post as we're starting to get better at doing, but that is super huge. Anyone want to add to what Jonathan's saying before we go to Ngazi? That was a very valuable point.
Just quickly, if for example, the person is an external customer and you want to convince them that external customer is actually able to purchase your services, just know that that person, he or she will have an opportunity to purchase from someone else. So in your pitch, in that PowerPoint, you want that give results of why you're different than your competitors. So it's always good to show the key advantages that you offer with your service or solution against the competitors, where you have clear comparisons that the person can detect and make a quick decision on your product.
Excellent. Yeah, we can probably always do a better job at the angles of doing a unique selling point. Let's move to Ngazi. And if anyone wants to come back to this very important point, we certainly can. Ngazi, please.
Right. I wasn't going to ask a question. I just wanted to add to the contribution, to the discussion. And so I was going to talk about really knowing who the audience is, which is key, and is sort of underscores every other thing we're doing. Because if we know who that customer is, then you can actually speak to him. That is when you can, you work out who else could he be considering, to Greg's point, who are the other people he could be considering for the services or product, and how do you prove that, whatever it is you're offering is the best option for him. All of that we go in. But I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is do everything you can to gather information about the customer so that whatever report, whatever presentation you're doing is totally tailored to him. You must make it generic, because it's really important that when the customer is looking at this presentation, it's really speaking to him, his situation, his problem. That's very, very important in the presentation. And that's just what I wanted to add.
Ngazi, that is so important and powerful that if we could have only said one thing today to help everyone with their presentation skills, that would have been the top one I would have picked. And when I talk to salespeople, marketing people, it's 100% what you just said. That's what makes or breaks their efforts. And Ngazi, I've heard you present before, and you do an excellent job. That's how we got to know each other. I think I left a positive comment on a presentation you gave that I heard, and yeah, you were doing what you were talking about. That's what got my attention. Hey, I want y'all to keep
Thank
a lot
you.
of. Oh, you're welcome, guys. Keep a lot of people in your thoughts. There's people out because of family things, family emergencies, sicknesses. I'm not worried about the numbers, by the way, but when I see it lower than typical, some people have reached out to me to just say, hey, really want to be there, but just got this going on. Again, it's always fine to show up late, leave early, even both. But yeah, we know life happens. So just keep those people in your thoughts. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? This has been very rich, and I'm definitely learning stuff myself.
Sorry, Tom, if I could just jump in one more thing.
Please.
I know the Amazon model is not very, it's not very evident in a lot of organizations, but if I can just say what I've done in an organization that is not really like Amazon, and they were not used to doing stuff like that. But what I do and what I still, I've done it successfully, and you can do it in any organization. I think we've talked around it, but using my own example to sort of stamp it in. So when I do a write up anything, I know I'm going to make a presentation maybe at the end of this next month. Once I start doing my presentation, I identify key stakeholders within the organization. They might not be within my team, but I reach out to them, and I would always make a point to say, oh, can I just have a catch up with you 5 minutes? It sounds unthreatening when you say 5 minutes of your time. And when I have that catch up, one of the things I try to validate is, whatever problem I'm trying to solve, what's their viewpoint, because every stakeholder has a different viewpoint. So after the 5 minutes chat, I tell them, oh, I have this presentation coming up at the end of the next month. When I do a draft, do you mind having just have a look at it ahead of the presentation? A lot of people, are happy to do that. But what I do with that is, I know a lot of times people, when you send them the presentation pack, they will not read it before the meeting. And unlike Amazon, organizations don't give you the opportunity to have people read at the meeting. So you jump in, nobody knows what you're talking about. So I make sure I identify the key people I want to have read what I've written in the presentation. So I send it ahead of time. I want them to give me feedback. I go to them individually. I say, oh, please, I really like your feedback about this. So by doing that, I've already got them to read the document, to send their feedback ahead of time, and that forms my frequently asked questions. And you know what? I only learned Amazon does this some months ago. I didn't know about it at the time I started doing it. So I add that as questions I know is going to come up in the presentation, and then when I go for the presentation, because the key stakeholders in the room have already read, asked their questions, and have answered and actually spoken about the responses with them, the presentation is sort of like addressing a known audience for me. So it helps with being nervous, because when you walk in, you don't know people's opinions and people's ideas, and you're new to the organization, maybe, or to the problem or to the team. You're sort of, you're not quite sure how, what minds you're sort of stepping on. But by doing this pre-work and having these people give me their feedbacks and opinion, you know, I think it helps with being nervous at the presentation as well.
I'm really glad you added that. And by the way, we have we've visited this point now multiple times, which is good. If you can get with those key stakeholders and develop the presentation or the solution, you know, in process, that's great. In those times that you can't, like you suggested in Ghazi, it's powerful to get to know everything about that person you can and what's important to them. Then you can speak to those things. That's during those times where you don't get to get their input before you deliver the presentation. You can still get their input or their thinking indirectly. And that's one of the other powerful things I've learned from those power marketers and sellers. Deepa has her hand up. We've been doing a private chat over here, and she asked a very good question about elevator pitches. And then Deepa, I'm going to just say something to your question over there, but then I want you to unmute and come in with me here.
Yeah, sure.
Let's think of, we've been talking about our unique selling point. That is the number one ingredient to your elevator pitch, right? You've boiled it down. By the way, I went to this very expensive restaurant one time, and it was to celebrate the conclusion to a routine court case that took forever. It was just one of those legal things, nothing, anyway. So someone suggested that we go to this very expensive restaurant to celebrate, and $300 later, and this was 10 years ago, so it would have been a lot more now. But they brought this sauce out, and it was to die for. I mean, to this day, I'm like, oh my God, that was so good. And I'm not usually that way, but they cooked it down for hours and hours and hours, just in very low heat. And it concentrated tastes. That's the kind of effort it takes to get a good elevator pitch. And you got to practice it a lot. But what it really boils down to is the most powerful way to give your unique selling point. Deepa, what do you have to add to that? Or did that answer your question? Help me out here.
Yes, Tom. So my question was, how do you come with an apt elevator pitch when, so sometimes what happens is you feel, I think we discussed this in last meeting also, we feel like every point is important and you sometimes struggle to come up with that, I mean, that elevator pitch that is actually the crux of what the discussion is going to be. So how, is there a way that you, I mean, I just wanted to understand, how do you come up with an elevator pitch?
So I think what I hear you asking, when you feel like there's so many points that are important and they can't really all be reduced down into one pithy elevator speech, how do you handle it? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, this is a great question. Sometimes all those big points that we care about that would take more than an elevator speech worth of time to share. By the way, timing for an elevator speech is about 30 seconds to a minute. Uh-oh, someone's got me on speaker. And what happens is there may be a bigger all-encompassing point. This is just one idea, by the way, but sometimes there's a bigger all-encompassing point and you're trying to sell them on that bigger all-encompassing point so that you can then get more time to get into the important details. That's just one idea, but I see Greg's hand up. Let's see what he's got to add.
Deepa, I believe that for different circumstances, you will have different elevator pitch, a different elevator pitch. Don't focus on having just one. But I'll tell you what, if for one elevator pitch you are conflicted with, so many things that you feel like you can add, then focus on the one you're truly passionate about.
Okay.
If there's a subject that you tackled that you solved and that you're proud about or proud of, and you're passionate about it, that makes that elevator pitch so much easy. It comes out naturally.
Okay.
You people can feel how passionate you were or you will be about talking about how you were uniquely positioned to solve that issue. And leveraging that passion will help you shorten how well you describe what you solve to someone. So think about preparing an elevator pitch for Kimberly Clark or Google, right? You can have different ones and select the one that you feel passionate about, but that Google or Kimberly Clark can relate to say, this person is quite passionate on top of being clever. I need to know more about him or her. That's what you're trying to look for. And to Tom's point, the key is to display your unique selling point in a short period of time, which is typically 30 seconds.
Okay, got
Hope
it.
that helped.
Yeah, that does. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brad.
I'll just say this verbally too. I've been going straight for a couple hours now, and I do have biological limits. I can hear y'all, but I'm going to step into the bathroom while I listen to y'all. Gaith and Greg and company, keep things going for me, please.
In fact, I want to add one thing. It's Tom already said that, but I want to give example about it. It's about the culture of these people, of your audience. We spoke a lot about how your elevator pitch have to be fast, have to be direct to the point, and to capture the whole idea in 30 seconds. That's good, and that's correct. This is the best process. But please, if your customer is an Arabic person or your audience, they are Arabs, don't do that. Believe me, because here the personal relationship is more important. So they want to feel that the presenter is part of them. He is always able to speak with their minds, their problems. Even the conversation or any meeting or any presentation might start with a question outside of the topic itself. This has happened a lot in the Arab world. So understand, and this is maybe it will be a surprise for everyone, but yes, this is something you will face. Here, no problem to have a meeting with for more than 90 minutes, but you have to be one of us or you will be out. So the personal relationship you have as a presenter to build this personal relationship before selling your product or showing your results or whatever was the presentation type. Now, this is different in the academic and educational life. No, this is not like this. But when we're talking about kind of stakeholders or customers, yes, this is the culture here inside the Arab world, let's say, or the Middle East. Yes, this is much appreciated to build personal relationship with this audience. So understanding the culture also, it's very critical on this.
Yeah, very great point, Raif. And it comes down to knowing your audience, right? So you have to do research, right? You have to do research. You have to be able to understand the context in which you're presenting, right? An elevator pitch is also a presentation, right? No matter how short it might sound. Yeah. And given the context, it might be shorter or longer. Right. So, and you have to understand who you're talking to and making sure at the end of the day, you're looking for that connection. And that's why when I took the example of, pitching for Google or pitching for Kimberly Clark, if you're looking for a job, you're looking for a way to connect, to relate to that person's problems. But beforehand, you've already made some research about, their potential issues they're having, which is why they might be looking for somebody to hire, right? It's because they're trying to solve some issues with that new hire. So by being able to anticipate what these are, connect these potential issues with what you've solved on your side with your experience, and sell it effectively through your passion, right? So there are other circumstances to right, good point. You have to be a little bit slower and empathize. At the end of the day, empathy connects us all. So use it to your advantage and get some results.
So what I hear is the elevator pitch is basically selling yourself the best way possible, knowing your audience. Yeah,
That's correct. And also the not only that, to top it all is understanding the purpose.
correct. Okay. That's perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Floor is open to any other questions that we might have here. Tom.
Thank you. I was really enjoying listening, and you know, I'm really into parsimony. I think it's a hilarious word, by the way. It just means the simplest model that will get the job done well. And usually the simplest model that'll get the job done well is the best one. But here's my point. And I'll lower my hand because I think, okay, I hate memorizing things. I can do it. I can memorize pages of stuff, but I'd rather focus on remembering concepts and understanding principles, and then just go review the details when I need to. But here's what I'm walking away with as I listen. Care. I know you've heard me say it before, but when you're developing a presentation or a sales point, care. Well, if you care, what does that mean? You go find out what's important to the people you need to speak to. You're showing them that the solution you're going to deliver is because you care about them, because you're trying to give value to them. And if that's what's leading you, think about you've got to accomplish all these little things we've talked about, but what will make sure you accomplish them well? It'll be because I cared, because I took the time to get off my butt or to pick up the phone and say, you know, I'm going to give you this presentation on these results, but I don't want to assume I know how you want it presented. So help me help you. How do you want to see it presented? What's important to you? And if you can't talk directly to them, maybe you can go talk to your friends about that person. What's important to them? What are they passionate about? What do they care about? In other words, I'm not poo-pooing any of these details. They're all important. But if we go at it with the spirit of, okay, I need to care. Now, how do I care well? All these things we've discussed. So this caring is really, yes, empathy. Exactly. Greg covered this. Empathy. That's right. I guess I really am repeating what Greg just said. Sorry for that. But yeah, if you start with empathy, if you start with caring, you can't go wrong. I think, help me if I'm wrong, guys. I'm discerning we're at a good stopping point. This was great. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, Deepa, please. Thanks for pointing that out. I missed it.
Yes. So if we are done with today's session, I had a request. So I did that request personally to Greg, but I want to put it open. I am curious to learn about Amazon's leadership principles. So it would be great if Greg could put a little insight in any of our future sessions.
Yeah, I'd love to give you something very quickly here. So next time we come and talk about it, it's very quick to access. If you type, I believe, Amazon Leadership Principles, you should return in Google the job portal is in there, the 14 leadership principles. And I'll tell you how I get familiar with it. I read it multiple times, and I, for each of these principles, I came up with 2 experiences that spoke to these principles. So if you think about, customer obsession, read about it. What is Amazon telling you about that? And think about a time where you've displayed that characteristic. Do that for all of them. Then you have a way to, kind of benchmark how you are tackling people's issues that relates to how Amazon does it. Another thing too is when you select these 2 experiences for each of these leadership principles, you want to provide that elevator pitch type answer to these experiences, because you don't want to ramble. And in order to do that, they also have in the job portal what we call the STAR method. STAR stands for situation, task, action, result. That is the framework that people being interviewed use to answer to their experience. And these experiences, again, speak to the leadership principles. So by next time we talk, do a quick research, write down for each of these leadership principles 2 experience. If you can't find 2, that's fine, just 1. And it's okay for one experience to show up in multiple, that's fine too. And then let's discuss, and I think using the STAR method to respond to situational questions that relate to these leadership principles is a great way to test your capability of pitching an answer. So that's good practice when it comes to getting interviewed by Amazon. So
thank you.
And this is great, what y'all are asking. And real quick, we'll lead off next week with Gio giving us some important summary points on presentation skills. And then Greg's going to deliver an example presentation that a data scientist might give, sort of. Greg, correct me if I'm wrong there.
It's more of a high level presentation on how to deliver with empathy.
Excellent.
And that's through leveraging design thinking.
Excellent. We had some people come in late. Guys, steward committee, help me here. Should we just keep going here, or should we go to the after party? Because we just had some wonderful people join us late, which is obviously okay. What do y'all think? What would y'all like to do? I want to be flexible here.
I think from my point of view, I have to move out. I have to roll out. Sorry for everyone.
No,
so
that's okay.
Since there is after party, that will be good. So.
What do y'all think? Keep going here or just go to the after party? And you can end the recording, Gaith, and we can keep it. Go to the after party, you think, Greg? Yeah, okay.